This man was so cruel that he pulled the girl up without saying a word and jumped over like a wolf. The tiger stared at him as if the girl thought it was nothing, and the man gave her a heavy slap. After that, the man had a drink, and the girl was so drunk that she didn't want to continue to be humiliated, so she quickly walked behind the man and picked up the bottle. The man passed out on the spot, and the girl took off the rope and strangled the man for less than an hour. The man finally passed out, and the girl put him in a bag and then dragged the heavy corpse into the mess room and put the corpse in the fridge. The girl went back to the house and happily shook her hands and feet and thought she was out of the lake. The next morning, the girl woke up from the sofa and was about to wash up. I was surprised to hear my boyfriend's voice. The girl turned around in shock and found her boyfriend standing at the door and asking him in a close-up, "What's for breakfast?" He looked puzzled. Wasn't his boyfriend killed by himself? Xiaomei thought it must be his soul, so she reached out and wanted to touch it. To see if it was a corpse, she was touched by her boyfriend first, so she saw the scar on his neck. Xiaomei was scared and ran out of the house. I ran into my neighbor's house, and I didn't wait for Xiaomei to talk to me. My boyfriend followed me from behind. Xiaomei took the opportunity to quickly run to the mess room to check the fridge and found her boyfriend's corpse lying there safe and sound. Xiaomei was even more confused. Who was the one who looked like her boyfriend in front of her? She wanted to kill her boyfriend again, but she knew the devil would come back. It was useless to kill him again, so Xiaomei came to the mess room in the middle of the night to chop off her boyfriend's meat and make a delicious meat pie. If you want to get your boyfriend back to life, you won't come back to life. Early in the morning, Dazhuang told Xiaomei that he was going out to find a job and said that he would make a qualified boyfriend. But Xiaomei didn't believe him at all and thought he would soon reveal his true nature. When Dazhuang left the door, Xiaomei dropped the meat pie he made. Dazhuang was happy and kissed him and praised him for his good craftsmanship and then left the door. But the strange thing is that Dazhuang opened the lunchbox and smiled evil in his mouth and then turned around and threw it away. At night, Dazhuang happily returned home and handed the lunchbox to Xiaomei and said it was delicious and had finished it. Xiaomei opened the lunchbox and confirmed that after eating, she let go of her mind. At night, Xiaomei fell asleep on the sofa and remembered her first encounter with Dazhuang a few months ago. He came to a cake shop to buy a cake to celebrate, but accidentally knocked off Dazhuang's cake. The two met by chance, and Dazhuang said it was his birthday and invited Xiaomei to join him. Xiaomei said yes at first sight, and the two slowly became boyfriend and girlfriend and lived together for 6 months. But just last week, Dazhuang seemed to have changed a person. He was like a devil, and he was crazy about Xiaomei every day and tortured Xiaomei to death because Xiaomei couldn't stand the experience of the week. He killed Dazhuang, and then Dazhuang ran to the door of the junk room where the dead body was and pushed it with his hands but couldn't open it. Then Dazhuang went crazy and shook the door like crazy. Xiaomei in the house was woken up by the sound of stabbing ears, and he came out and was shocked by the scene in front of him and quickly called Dazhuang. Dazhuang ran over, and Xiaomei asked him what he was doing, and Dazhuang said there was a scream and said something creepy. The girl put on a white cloth and held the rabbit doll and suddenly received a phone call. Xiaomei left in a hurry but forgot to lock the door of the junk room. When he met his mother, he suddenly remembered that he didn't lock the door of the junk room when he left, so he hurried home and went back to the junk room. After Xiaomei saw the rabbit doll, she panicked, and Dazhuang had already been here because the place where he put the doll was obviously facing the wall. Xiaomei quickly locked the door and went back to the living room to see that Dazhuang had made a table full of food, and Dazhuang told Xiaomei that his boss would come home for dinner. At dinner, Dazhuang introduced the main course to the boss today, which was a milk-stewed meatball, and said it was made with his own fresh meat. Xiaomei suddenly thought of some cruel pictures. After the boss left, Dazhuang saw Xiaomei eating without moving her chopsticks and wanted to feed her personally, but Xiaomei couldn't open her mouth. So Dazhuang had to eat the meatball by herself, scared Xiaomei almost spat out tomorrow's meal. At this time, Dazhuang said, "It's okay, that's not in there." That's who Dazhuang called him to hand over the key to the junk room. Xiaomei was scared to death. "You want to know I'm going to sleep with you?" In the face of 3 seconds of Dazhuang, Xiaomei had no choice but to be obedient. But when Dazhuang entered the door, Xiaomei suddenly pushed him away. "Quickly pull up the door and lock yourself inside." Dazhuang tried his best to fight, but he had to go back to the house first. But the camera turned. An FBL came to the door and told Xiaomei's mother that your daughter's target was a fraudster who told her to be careful. When his mother heard this, she was very worried about Xiaomei, so she called him quickly. but her phone was hung by Da Zhuang in the house. His mother panicked, so she called her neighbor Da Piaoliang and asked him to see what was going on with her daughter. Da Piaoliang came to Xiaomei's house to ask for someone, but Da Zhuang lied to her that Xiaomei was out of the house. And then Da Piaoliang said a strange sentence. In other words, the neighbor guessed that Da Zhuang was exchanging identities with the twins and scaring Xiaomei together. He asked Da Zhuang again. So the other one of the twins, Da Zhuang, was furious and said, Nana killed him. But at that moment, Xiaomei took out an 18-meter butcher's knife from the outside. He rushed in with anger and forced Da Zhuang. Under Xiaomei's threat, Da Zhuang finally told the truth. It turns out that Da Zhuang really has a brother named Da Shuai. Da Shuai is Xiaomei's real boyfriend, but not long ago he was supposed to fight with Da Zhuang to go to the neighbor's house to fix the faucet, so there was a contradiction between the two of them. Da Shuai was hit by Da Zhuang, and Da Zhuang successfully grew up to replace Da Shuai as Xiaomei's partner. And on the night of the night, Da Shuai was recovering from the hospital, and when he returned to the door of the house, he saw the scene of the heart and soul of Xiaomei dragging a person to the room. After Xiaomei left, under the drive of curiosity, Da Shuai quietly ran over and said, "Oh, this is not my brother Da Shuang." Fortunately, Da Shuang was only dragged by Xiaomei for an hour, and there was the last breath. Unfortunately, Da Shuai, who could not bear it, also saved him. But what Da Shuai did not expect was that his brother not only did not thank him, but also killed himself and was strangled to death by Da Shuang. Then put him in the refrigerator, and Da Shuang was so unknowing that he succeeded in escaping, and now Da Shuang did not seem to admit that he was Da Shuai himself. Xiaomei looked exactly like the man she once loved, and at that moment she was moved. But at that moment, suddenly, fortunately, Da Shuang was surprised and just stabbed his waist. On this day, a strange man came to his mother and was ready to blackmail her, saying that your daughter had killed someone. And his mother asked the man to leave with a frown on her face. The man just said that he would come to him with evidence next time. After returning home, his mother told his daughter about this, and Xiaomei trusted his mother very much and told her the truth. They took advantage of Da Shuang's injury and decided to completely destroy the evidence. The mother and daughter began to move the body together, and at that moment Da Shuang secretly ran out to see his accomplice. It turned out that Da Shuang was really a fraud, and the idea of frauding Xiaomei's mother was also his accomplice. The accomplice told Da Shuang to find the evidence of Xiaomei's murder as soon as possible, and we had to work hard. The next day, Da Shuang took advantage of the fact that his mother and daughter were not at home and kept turning over the cabinet to see if she could find some clues. But she happened to be seen by Big Pretty, and Big Pretty just asked, "What about Nana?" Da Shuang was very depressed in front of Xiaomei, an 18-year-old girl, who said she didn't like it. Big Pretty watched Xiaomei grow up. The man kicked the woman with 1 foot, 1 punch, 2 punches, 3 punches. The girl was afraid to cover the sun, and the man beat her for half an hour until the woman finally hung up, and he sat aside in fear. At this point, his daughter Xiaomei looked at the mother of the boxed meal, and he could no longer stand the father of the family. So he picked up a boiling water bottle and poured 105 degrees of boiling water over his father's head. Xiaomei quickly pulled down the charger and strangled his father tightly. Less than 2 hours later, his father finally died. Then Xiaomei called the dean of the orphanage for help. After the kind dean learned about the situation, he decided to help Xiaomei destroy the world and also cleaned up the scene and was willing to adopt Xiaomei as his own goddaughter. It turned out that Xiaomei was originally a child of a single family. When she was in elementary school, her mother took her to get married and she had this stepfather. But this stepfather was like a devil every day. He took care of his mother, so he suppressed his emotions for many years, and they all burst out. At night, his companions came to Xiaomei's house to look for evidence. They opened a cellar and buried 2 bodies underneath, and the handsome one. At this point, Xiaomei just got home and didn't wait for his companions to blackmail Xiaomei. Xiaomei wore a wedding dress and waited for Da Zhuang to come home. From then on, Da Zhuang and Xiaomei had a happy life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Your support means everything and helps the channel grow. Let's hit that next milestone together.